welcome to another edition of Think Big, Do Good with Missouri Farm Bureau. In this series, we highlight members, Farm Bureau members who have shown throughout their careers that they truly are thinking big, and in some cases small, and doing great things, whether it's in their communities, within the Farm Bureau organization, or maybe even in Congress. I'm thrilled to be joined for this edition with our own Sam Graves, a longtime congressman from the 6th District of Missouri, who hails from Tarkio and has a long storied history in Farm Bureau. So Sam, thanks for joining me for this conversation.
Absolutely. Wouldn't miss it.
So we are here in Washington, D.C. in his office. Always a great conversation starter, Sam, when I look at your wall and just the achievements that you've had through the years that not only mark your time in Congress, but also your time in the Missouri General Assembly and Farm Bureau. So why don't you, for our audience, just start from the beginning. Talk a little bit about your family and the farm and growing up in Tarkio.
So we obviously farm in Northwest Missouri, in Tarkio, corn and soybean operation. It wasn't always that way. I got started raising hogs in partnership with my grandfather, and it was a 50-50 partnership. He had the facilities, and I had the labor, and so we split the costs. And I raised hogs for a lot of years because land was hard to rent. And I got started in the 80s when the farm crisis was at its height. And I remember I went on the Today Show with Jane Pauley. Farm Bureau actually recommended me, and they did a bunch of candidate interviews. They picked me and they brought me out there, and they asked, why did you go into agriculture when it's so, the outlook is so bleak? And I said I never really thought about that. I mean, my family farms, and I told Jane Pauley, who interviewed, she said, she asked me, and I said, well, I went into farming to make money. I didn't go into farming to carry on tradition necessarily, but that's what my family does. And she was a little shocked by that, I think, in that, she saw me as a businessman, and she didn't necessarily think of farmers as businessmen or business people, and so I thought that was interesting. But yeah, we've been farming. I'm the 6th generation. My son's 7th generation on our farm, and I think we have a very successful operation. Obviously, it's struggling right now just simply because input costs continue to go up. Now we got commodity prices going down, and we've had some very good years the last few years, right up until this year. But I did get started in Farm Bureau, but Farm Bureau is actually the reason I got started in politics.
Okay, so you grew up in a family that were Farm Bureau members. I mean, but they weren't active from a leadership standpoint.
No, not necessarily at all.
My family, again, members of Farm Bureau, but not involved from a leadership standpoint either. So who or what caused you to want to get involved from a leadership?
So the reason I even joined Farm Bureau in the beginning was to be a part of the Acres program, and I wanted to get the commodity prices and everything. Yep. And so then I started paying attention, and I remember Greg Gaines and Blake Hurst was our county president, and Blake and Greg were pushing me to get involved, and they wanted me to come to the Young Farmer Conference. So I agreed to do that, and I went to the Young Farmers Conference, and one of the classes, they had these little short seminar things, and one of them was local and state government. And as Bob Hyde, Susan, and Estelle Fretwell were kind of going through this and talking about it, and they gave us a little quiz. And the quiz was to demonstrate just how involved are you. And the questions were easy. Who's your state rep? Who's your state senator? Who's your governor? Who's your member of Congress? Who are your 2 United States senators? And I say easy, but I didn't know the answer to any of those questions. And that was in 1987, and so I got to thinking about it, and here we are in a very highly regulated industry, and we're supposed to be getting involved in local and state and federal government, and I don't even know who my elected representatives are. I had a pretty good idea Tim Kelly was something. I just didn't know, what Tim Kelly was, but or what position he had. So I decided to get involved, and then I started paying attention to the individual that was representing us in the State House and his record on agriculture, and it was not good. And he was a very powerful person. He was chairman of the Appropriations Committee, 16-year incumbent. He had been around a long time and knew politics and knew it very, very well. Had a nice war chest, and so being as naive as I was, I decided to run against him, and I won. And so I just literally outworked the gentleman. He was a very nice guy, but I literally outworked him and won a seat. And then I realized, now what do I do? I'm in the State House and I have no idea what I'm doing. And I jumped in. I served 2 years in the State House, then ran for the State Senate, and served 6 years in the State Senate, and then ran for Congress. And I've been in Congress now 25 years. And I got a degree in agronomy, and I went into politics. So it's that's how I got started, and that's kind of our background. But we still farm in Northwest Missouri, and my dad, who's 91, still active on the farm. My brother and my son are managing partners, and my nephews are a part of it as well. And I'm there every chance I get. That's how I clear my head, is to go sit on the combine.
Well, obviously you have a track record of thinking big when you talk about just how you jumped into politics. Your brother Todd also has been a big thinker too. He was the founding president of our collegiate chapter at the University of Missouri, the first collegiate chapter of anywhere in the country, which is pretty cool, given that we're the first state Farm Bureau, right? But you also thought big in terms of opportunity in Farm Bureau, because I see, when you retired off of the Young Farmer Committee, I see your American Farm Bureau Achievement Award. So how you get involved because of Greg Gaines, obviously just famous from his time as regional coordinator, obviously Blake Hurst and all of his achievements. What made you want to climb through the ranks on those awards?
Well, I got asked to join the Young Farmer Committee and loved it, and Leroy Delastinier was heading that up at the time, and a great...
Oh my gosh, he could sell a Farm Bureau membership.
Right. And so I really got involved, and obviously that gave me an opportunity to be a part of the resolutions, committee, and going through that, loved every part of that. And then my second year, I was asked to be chairman, and which obviously put me on the board, and I got a little bit more flavor of for what Farm Bureau was all about. And then I participated in the discussion meet, and then the State Young Farmer Award, won at the state level, and then went on to compete in the national level, and obviously won the National Outstanding Young Farmer. And it was, it was surreal, to be quite honest with you. I had no idea. And I had no idea that I was going to win, and I could not believe it when they announced it.
So for our young people, just what do you remember about the whole process? Because it's intense.
It's very intense, and they really grill you on your financial aspects of your farming operation. At the time, I was raising hogs. I was doing some cropland. I was also using my equipment to supplement farm income. I was pushing snow in the winter. I had a snow removal business using the tractors on the farm, and doing everything I could to scrape by. So what was interesting was I wasn't necessarily the biggest operation by any means, any stretch of the imagination. There were much larger operations, but I had done this all on my own. And I think the judges liked that aspect of it, and I knew every single detail about the finances of raising hogs, and in a partnership with my grandfather at the time, and in the finances of renting land, and trying to figure out how to compete with other farmers when it comes to renting land, and how to be more innovative and more desirable to potential landlords. And so I went through, it was a very intense process, and you just went through it in a lot of interviews, going through that. So I was surprised, just simply because I look at the bios of some of the people competing against me from other states, and these were just incredible operations, and I thought, I have no chance ever of winning this thing. And then they announced my name, and I couldn't believe it. It was in Phoenix. I remember the national convention was in Phoenix that year, and I remember Dan Quayle spoke. Yeah. Vice President Quayle spoke at the convention, but I was absolutely floored, absolutely floored. And I actually celebrated that night with the regional coordinators. So Gaines, Holhubner, Kelly, all of these guys, and they were the ones I celebrated with that night. So.
Well, you talk about a crew that have been big thinkers and did a lot of good during their time in Farm Bureau. They're another prime example of that. When you talk about your political career, Farm Bureau has been a very important part. You see up here the endorsements. You see you've received the Outstanding Service to Agriculture Award, the highest honor that Missouri Farm Bureau gives. Your time Sam, I remember as a college student in your first few years in Congress, you were a part of the biggest rewrite of the crop insurance program to actually make it work better for farmers. And I remember as a college student, even though you weren't my member of Congress, I so desperately wanted to intern for you because you were a mover and a shaker, just focused on doing good, of improving farm programs. So talk a little bit about that, your early years.
So it's, when we were working on the Farm Bill, and even today when we work on the Farm Bill, and I'm not on the Ag Committee anymore, but being an actual user, an actual customer of, for instance, crop insurance or the farm program overall. And I'm going to sidestep for just a little bit, because what most consumers don't understand is food policy affects them. They think that the farm program is just about farmers and subsidies, and that has nothing. It has a little bit, but obviously that's not what the goal is. The goal is to have the safest and the most abundant and the most affordable food supply in the world. There's no other country in the world that you don't have to worry about every single grocery store shelf being absolutely stocked with fresh and affordable food. And that's what farm policy is about. But we have to make sure that we have that safety net, because agriculture is one of the few industries that we're a price taker on both ends. We have to take the price that's dictated to us for all of our inputs, and we have to take the price that's dictated to us for all of our outputs. We have no control over either side. And then you throw the weather in on top of that, and now you've got an industry that is completely out of your hands when it comes to how much money you're going to make at the end of the year to support your family. And so farm policy is very, very important to this country, and it's very important to consumers. And you have to educate other members. We have very few members in Congress that are actual producers or have engaged in production agriculture, whether that's cattle or hogs or grain crops or even fruit crops or vegetable crops in California. Very few. There's just a handful of us. And so that means a whole lot of education has to be done to make sure that people understand what food policy is about. Now, the Farm Bill, though, has so many other aspects to it, the nutrition program being the biggest one. And that's where the constant fight comes in, is the inner city and the nutrition programs versus traditional farm programs, which actually dictate that safety and affordability and abundance of our food supply. And now it's one of the smallest pieces of the Farm Bill. So there's always that move to just take farmers out of the Farm Bill, take them out of food policy, which would be disastrous. We have to have that safety net, and that's what it is, not a hammock. It's a net, and we have to have that to make sure that our farmers, which supply the bread basket for the country and most of the world, we have to make sure that stays in place. And by the way, we use food when it comes to working with other countries, when it comes to our allies, when it comes to bringing many of the third world countries up to a better standard. We use food as a lever, for lack of a better term, when it comes to good relations with these other nations. That's one thing we have in abundance, is food.
So it's been so much fun to watch your career as you wear your farmer hat and parlay that into leadership when it comes to investment in infrastructure in this country. You have had a true passion with the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee for years, now ascending to the role of chairman, getting a waiver so you can continue to serve as chairman. What I've seen, obviously Missouri being the epicenter of river transportation, you have long helped lead the conversation on sound Missouri river management because you live it from where you're from. Then you see the importance of highways and how we move our livestock and grain. Like, you have brought that farmer common sense mindset to this important committee. And what I've seen is a return to regular order in terms of how this committee operates and making sure that you're continually updating and making these investments. So talk about how you've been able to marry those passions.
So, and obviously transportation is very important to agriculture, as you pointed out, whether that's rail or barge up and down the river, or roads and bridges, and that means trucks, and we're all hauling our grain. Sooner or later, it's got to get on a truck. We got to get it to those points. But yeah, it's vitally important. And then there's farm to market roads. Those are as important as anything when it comes to being able to get that grain out of the field and to the grain bin or to the terminal market. So I've enjoyed that opportunity and being able to do transportation. I run the committee a little different than some people run a committee. I believe I'm an old school legislator, which means I believe in compromise. And compromise means you're going to get most of what you want. You may not get all of what you want, but you're going to get most of what you want. And I see as my partner in the process is Rick Larson. He's the lead Democrat on the committee, and he and I work very closely together. We actually came in the same class. We've known each other a long time. And he's a partner in the process. He's not an adversary. He's a partner in the process. And that's how we are able to get good pieces of legislation out, to get overwhelming votes. The FAA reauthorization last year that we did, which in the past has been very controversial, got 376 votes in the House of Representatives, which is overwhelming. And the word of bill, which is very important to us when it comes to water infrastructure, we passed and got signed into law and had overwhelming support from the House of Representatives, and then ultimately going to the Senate and getting their support. So we've been able to do some great things, and now we're working on that surface transportation reauthorization, which is the highway bill, and working through that. And I intend to do it exactly the same way that we have done the other bills. And so we should have a good bill, and it's going to get plenty of support from both sides of the aisle.
Just tremendous vision as you think about just how we continue to lead. It's great to see a committee that functions, and you're functioning on time and getting stuff done. Now, I have to tell you, I had a pinch me moment a year or so ago. Your committee has jurisdiction over issues like waters of the U.S. and obviously Missouri Farm Bureau, a long-time leader on this space, and because of you, I had the chance to testify. I have to tell you, if my career ended tomorrow, Sam, that would be a true highlight. Just talk about some of those issues that you've been involved in and helping make sure that farmers have a seat at the table.
So waters of the U.S. is something that this thing has been batted back and forth, as you are well aware, and farmers are well aware. It's been batted back and forth. Just a political hot potato, and then we just got the announcement, actually this morning, from EPA, and which they're going back to. They're eliminating the whole significant nexus, and redefining what a body of water is, and that's exactly what we need, because it was a taking. That's the federal government taking the use of your property based on and it was so subjective. As well, making those determinations on what you've done to your land, and have you violated any of their rules and regulations. So now we're finally back to normal. We were pushing that along through the WRDA bill, the Water Resources Development Bill, and but we needed the EPA to get back in there, and very happy to see what happened this morning. But it's been great working with Farm Bureau through that process, because Farm Bureau's been a leader in this whole process, and without that backing, it makes it that much harder.
Well, you've got a lot of awards in the aviation space. I've got to ask, tell folks about your passion for aviation. You love to fly yourself, very involved in air shows. Obviously, you're a huge supporter of veterans as well, and just your knowledge is tremendous. Talk a little bit about just that passion and where it comes from.
So the local airport literally sits in the middle of our farm. My great-grandfather gave the land to the city. If they would name it after his son was a B-24 pilot. He was killed in the war, and they named the airport. So when I say in the middle of our farm, I mean literally across the street. And so when my brother and I were not doing our chores on the farm or working on the farm, doing whatever Dad needed, we'd sneak off down to the airport and do anything we could to mooch a ride, whether that's sweeping hangars, sweeping the apron, pumping gas, cleaning airplanes, washing windshields, anything to mooch a ride, or even better, mooch a lesson. And so we both kind of got our pilot's license the same way, just scrabbling ourselves along, and we both ended up with commercial licenses. I ultimately ended up with an ATP, that's an airline transport license, and then started flying shows and flying what we call T6s. So it was a World War II trainer. You get a certain amount of hours in a T6, and then you have museums coming to you and wanting you to fly their aircraft for them at shows. And so now I fly for 4 different museums and love every bit of it, and and working through it. And anyway, it's a lot of fun, and it's a great opportunity.
Well, by the smile on your face, everyone who's watching this video is going to see just how excited you get. This is our annual fly-in where we bring members to DC, and those who watch this, who are more seasoned Farm Bureau members to our young collegiates who are still trying to figure out their way, what they want to do. What are some words that you want to share with them in terms of the opportunity that you see? Because clearly you've been a part of policy for decades now of trying to set the stage, I think in a lot of ways, to help bring the kids home, whether it's to the farm or to the rural communities, that there's got to be something to come home to. What is your vision? What opportunity do you see?
I see huge opportunities for young people, and all you got to do is take advantage of it, jump in there. And I did, like I say, I ran for state rep. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I just outworked the gentleman. I took that work ethic that I learned on the farm and applied it to politics, and I still to this day. If you outwork your opposition, you're going to win every time. And you find that there's a lot of lazy people out there that don't want to work very hard for something, and so if you apply yourself, you can do it. But my advice would be get involved. I learned early on in the resolutions process with Farm Bureau, just how, because it's very similar to how legislation is made and done. And I always said as a state rep, you don't have enough staff to have a constituent service, but Farm Bureau annual meeting was actually the best constituent service ever because you could learn everything you needed to know about an agriculture district from the folks in the debate that took place when it came to the resolutions process. And so I would, my advice would be just get involved and just jump in there and do it. And don't think you can't, because oh yeah, you can. And don't think you can't beat an incumbent either, because I did. And so there's no such thing as never.
Well, you have been on my list for a while to be able to interview for this series, because you're a prime example of a fellow Farm Bureau member who has shown that you think big and do good, and the impact that you make not only is here today, but the impact that you're making is going to last for generations in the form of infrastructure investment to, again, I think back to my collegiate days and recognizing what you were doing to make your imprint on farm policy. It's pretty cool for all of us to be able to call you not only our congressman, but our friend and fellow member. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, folks, thank you for tuning in to another edition of Think Big, Do Good. I'm your president, Garrett Hawkins, and it truly has been an honor and a privilege to be able to sit down with Missouri's 6th District Congressman, Mr. Sam Graves. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Garrett.